Okay, fantastic. Wow, we are nice turnout. Fantastic. Before the official start, I just want to see who's here. How many of you are students studying international relations? Fantastic. Wow. How many of you want to be diplomats in the future? How many of you, this is a question, speak Spanish or are learning Spanish? Oh, a few hands. French? Fantastic. Excellent. Good. I like this audience. This is a good audience. Well, welcome. Let me start officially. Okay, let me just make sure. All right, we are on time. It's 11:30, everybody. I am going to set my stopwatch because I like to be respecting time. So, ladies and gentlemen, students, everybody that's here, welcome to all of you, and welcome to the ADF talks here in Antalya. Welcome to the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. I'm going to say it in Turkish because I've been trying to learn Turkish for a long time. Antalya'ya hoş geldiniz, everybody. Woo! We'll say it in Spanish because you have two Spanish people here. Bienvenidos a Antalya. Bienvenidos a la... el Fórum Diplomático de Antalya. Yes, there you go. I have to check. I'm Maria Ramos. I work for TRT World. I'm an anchor there, a news anchor, and I've been living in Istanbul in Turkey for nearly four and a half years now. It's my very happy home. I'm British Spanish, and it's a pleasure to be with you here today, with all of you. Now, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our very special guest. His Excellency, Miguel Ángel Moratinos. He is the High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. That is a very important word right now. And it really is a fascinating organization, everybody. It was founded in 2005 by then UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, and it is co-sponsored by Turkey and also by Spain. Fantastic project. Now, it was created at a very sensitive time in the aftermath of 9/11, in the context of the war, the global war on terrorism, and it was really created to serve as a political tool for conflict prevention and conflict resolution. And it was an important mission then and an important mission now, given the world we're living in, the times we're living in right now. So, let us start. Your Excellency, Mr. Moratinos, you are the High Representative for the UN Alliance of Civilizations, and we are living in an extraordinary time right now, a time when the world is seeing an attack again in the heart of Europe. How disillusioned are you at seeing this when every day you work to bridge ethnic divisions, religious divisions, cultural divisions? How disappointed are you at the moment we are living in right now?
Well, thank you, Maria. It's a pleasure to be back. One year ago we were...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so thank you, Maria. It's a pleasure to be back in Antalya 1 year after we met the first time. It's a pleasure to have such important audience. To be frank with you, I was feared that due to the plenary meeting with head of state, foreign minister, prime minister, our session will be you and myself talking together, but we are accompanied by extremely important audience, young people that I think are the one who already not only the future, is the present. that they want to understand what is going on in today's world. So it's a great pleasure. And let me thank, of course, the organizer, the Turkish leadership, the president and the foreign minister, in order to be back in this innovative diplomacy forum, where I think we try to identify how to rule and create a better future for all of us. I like very much the title of this conversation, Bridging Diversity. I like the concept of bridge. I think in today's world we can have two kinds of generation of people, of approach of conflict situation. One is they say the dam generation, I mean dam to contain, so we protect ourselves and we create fortress, and so we defend from the others, from somebody different of ourselves. On the contrary, we build bridges. A bridge that put people together, that facilitate the communication. Not only the connectivity through digital world, no, on reality, we are the builders of a future humankind. And that is what the Alliance tried to be created. At the beginning, as Maria was saying, was focusing in this threat and concern we all have about terrorism, and that the way was to really work together. The idea that terror is a common threat, and so Islamic world, Muslim world, Western society have to unite and work together in order to really defeat this threat to all of us. But in today's world, the challenge is even bigger. And today's challenge, as you can imagine, after what is going on in Ukraine, we have to understand what is the role, what is the capacity of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization to bring hope and concrete ideas in order to really make a better living for all of us. So, what is the Alliance of Civilization? As you hinted already in your introductory remark, we are building bridges of understanding between different cultural, religious, civilization, people at the end. And so we have this very complex situation today that we are going back to the so-called bloc and East-West confrontation.
Are we really going back, though?
I think so. I mean, they are trying some of the situation and public opinions in general. We are in this sense that we are even some analysts in some New York Times and other people and Pais, they were saying that what is going on in Ukraine was a clash of civilization. And I said, no. The conflict in Ukraine is not a clash of civilization. I mean, Russia and the West have to live together and have to understand each other and have to, of course, we have, of course, a real problem. We have, as any international, to fulfill the UN Charter. We have to condemn any military invasion that break, the territorial integrity. But apart of that, and we have to make a ceasefire, as the Turkish diplomacy is trying to help and trying to engage. In other, I think it will be our main concern. But please, don't be tempted to go back to what the humanity have already succeeded to put at the back of history. So that is our challenge today, is how in this very complex and very difficult situation we are not tempted to go back to this, let's say, gloomy period of history, of war, confrontation, misunderstanding, and clash of certain civilization and culture among ourselves.
Thank you so much for really laying out the theme and the heart of of this talk and really where we are, all of us right now today. You say what's happening in Ukraine is not a clash of civilizations, but how has it shaken Ukraine, Europe, the world? This is an attack right now. We're seeing an exodus of refugees. The UN has said it's the biggest, since World War II, the influx, the number of people. And it's just incredibly sad what we're seeing right now. How has it shaken the civilizations right now?
Well, to be frank and to be self-criticism, it's a failure of diplomacy. Let's be blunt.
So what's happening in Ukraine is a failure of diplomacy.
It's a failure of diplomacy. When it's war or conflict or crisis, whatever you qualify it, it's a failure of diplomacy.
But they tried. We saw non-stop diplomacy for months.
There has been not a stop diplomacy, but I think we have to realize that the instrument, institution, organization didn't succeed to avoid this terrible situation that are living in Ukraine. And Ukrainian people are suffering every day. The Ukrainian people are dying. And the Ukrainian people need peace as everybody in order to put an end to this situation.
Why was it a failure of diplomacy, and how could they have avoided it?
Because we are in the 21st century. And still we have the instrument, and certain organization belongs to the past century. I mean, I'm a UN, and I believe in UN. And Secretary General has launched what he called the new common agenda in order to reform UN. But if we have still the same instrument, the same methodology, the same institution within the system belonging to the Second World War, it doesn't fit to what is going on
so
in
what
the
do we
21st
need today?
century.
What
so
do we need
to reform. So, of course, we want first to put an end to the military confrontation. That's the main urgent issue that we have to really concentrate. And we, as I told you, I really support and applaud the effort of everybody, but particularly of the Turkish diplomacy.
And let me just ask you about that, sorry to interrupt, because what we saw yesterday, and I'm sure so many of you will agree, I will quote exactly what the foreign minister of Ukraine said. And he said, Turkey has achieved in diplomacy what others failed to achieve. Turkey brought together, I know because I tweeted this, brought together the foreign ministers of Ukraine, of Russia, for the first time in years, and at such a time as this.
Absolutely. You know, diplomacy, you don't succeed in one meeting or two meetings, but you have to be perseverant, you have to insist, you have to develop, you have to think what is needed to be taken as immediate and short-term measure, but you have to propose ideas for what is going to be the day after you reach an understanding and a peaceful settlement. So I think we have to recuperate this capacity to really put together people, to have compromises, important historical compromise, and then to have a peaceful, let's say, relationship for the future. And what happened today is that, unfortunately, you know, there has been so many years that this instrument, this reorganization of what for the Russian side was to reshape the security architecture of Europe have not been taken too seriously. And so, well, it doesn't, I don't want to justify a military aggression, not at all, because I'm a diplomat, I'm a politician, I don't accept this kind of behavior in the 21st century. I try to understand why we come to that in order that when we will propose a solution, the solution will be sustainable. Because what we propose is just to have a ceasefire, okay, that's absolutely necessary, but we don't have any concrete idea of what is going to be the world of tomorrow. We will find the same. Europe succeeded after so many centuries of war, of confrontation, of bloodshed, to put an end after 45, and we create the European Union. And the European Union, community first, then European Union today, it has been, as the founding father, an era, a place of peace. Peace was identified with European Union. So the Europeans and the Western side have not to lose the sense what are our values, our principles. And I think even, of course, we are absolutely behind what is going on in Ukraine. The Western world, and I'm a Westerner, I'm a European, I'm a Spaniard, as you say, but I have the view of the whole world. We have to understand that there are other elements in the world today that have to be taken into consideration. So our values are universal values. We are not saying that are Western values, no. Our values for all of us, all humankind. And if we are now saying that we are the only one who can impose our civilization to others, we are making tremendous mistake. There is no a prevailing civilization. It's a one humanity. We are living in one humanity with different culture, different religion, and different civilization.
Mr. Moratinos, I want to just, we could speak about Ukraine for so long. It dominates world headlines right now, and it is just so important. But I want to bring you on to the tectonic shifts that we're seeing in this part of the world with regards to the normalization of ties, the warming of ties with Israel. The president was here yesterday in Istanbul, visiting a synagogue. And you were Spain's ambassador to Israel. And this warming of relations right now with Arab countries and Israel, Turkey and Israel. And 2 years ago, you were designated by the UN to be the focal point to monitor anti-Semitism. So my question is, this warming of relations with Israel, what will this mean for anti-Semitism, for the Palestinian struggle? We had a war in Gaza last year. For the Palestinians and just for the Middle East itself. Because we see all the meetings, the aeroplanes, but the shifts, what does it mean for all these three things?
I was extremely happy that the President of Israel visited Turkey because it's a long story between Israel and Turkey for many years, for many decades, and there has been, of course, a crisis during the last year due to the Palestinian issue that make the relation cold and difficult between the two countries. So normalization, being again a diplomat, is a fantastic word. You have to normalize relations. But what means behind this normalization? What are the succeed of this normalization? The success of this normalization is when you really help to solve the problems that were in the middle of your crisis. So I'm in favor of Abrahamic Accord. I participated a long time ago when I was foreign minister and special envoy to the Middle East, to the normalization between Israel and different Arab countries. I'm okay with that. But what the people have to know that there will be no full normalization situation in the region, in the Middle East, in the world, in Europe, if we don't solve the Palestinian issue. And so, with all my respect, what have happened in Gaza was a big crisis. And at the same time as we are saying to what is going on in Ukraine, we should also mobilize ourselves that there will be no new Gaza crisis.
Are there double standards?
There have been double standards. And that the West have to understand that if we don't abandon double standard, we will not be able to live together. So that is what is the lesson of everything. We have to stay with the principle of legality, international law, justice, and the need for, in this case, the Palestinians, to decide by their future. So I said it many times, I'm in a very good relation with Israel. Israel was, of course, accepted as a state in 1948. And why Palestinians, they have no the right to have a state? Why the Europeans and the Western countries don't recognize Palestinian state? What is the problem? They have the right to have their state. So what is no? When Ben-Gurion, and I said publicly and privately, have the idea in 1948 to decide to write to the UN to say we want to be recognized as state of Israel, he used his unilateral decision to present to the international community the right. So why Palestinians, they will have only the state after the result of negotiation? No. Palestinians have the same right as Israel. And we, the Western, we should recognize, and there will be two states negotiating the dispute issues, borders, security, settlement, Jerusalem, whatever they have to be discussed, but instead of being discussed by the so-called Palestinian Authority, it will be discussed at the equal level. And I think that at the same time, as you say, we are, and I'm the focal point, to defend and to fight anti-Semitism. Because anti-Semitism doesn't really be an element that can create, this sense of reconciliation and understanding between Jewish and Arab and Muslim citizens and countries. So let's be clear. In this world, we need to have and to act in all the cases with the same standard, with the same commitment of protecting people and protecting the international law.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm looking at the time. I just want to move on to another subject. We are all waking up from 2 years, is it 3 years now, of COVID-19, of a pandemic. What has this shown about an alliance of civilizations when 10% of Africa is vaccinated only? The rest of us here, I'm sure, have had 2 vaccines, have had a booster, and yet part of the world is not vaccinated. And what is it that I love? We all hear this mantra from Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus: no one is safe until everybody is safe. But the word everybody just has fallen into the wayside.
Well, I think when we were leading to a better world, fighting against climate change, saving the planet, and the Alliance trying to save the humanity, we have this terrible pandemic, and then we have this Ukrainian conflict. So the 2 elements come when the world finally, we were focusing to the right agenda. Unfortunately, as you said, with COVID-19, we were put into this so-called declarative solidarity at the beginning. I was naive myself, like most of you, I can imagine. At the beginning, we thought that COVID-19 are going to put ourselves in this understanding that this is a global challenge for all of us. Either you are Chinese or African or Latin American or European, we are in the same boat. So we have to work together and help each other. And so at the beginning, everybody was applauding in the balconies. Well, how much it lasts? 1 month, 2 months? Then, sálvese quien pueda, we say in Spanish, no?
Anyone can, everybody, save yourself.
Save himself. And then we started to buy vaccine ourselves, not sharing vaccine with the other, closing countries, treating Asians as the ones who started the pandemic, and the breach in society, the rupture in society, discriminate, and you see how the poor, the black in the United States, remember, Black Matter, it started during the pandemic. Then in different countries in Europe, well, there was discrimination, exclusion, and that is part of the work of the Alliance. But when you mention in this panel diversity, what show the world of today that we are in a diverse world. And diversity is not a threat. Diversity is an enlightenment. We are diverse. You and me, everybody have a different ADN, different genome.
Diversity is not a threat, but for so many people it is.
Yes, they want to be all homogeneous. I remember when I started studying diplomatic, and they said the three Macs, McDonald, McLuhan, Macintosh, and McLuhan. So they want to be us, and with now the metaverse, they want to be all the same. All the same. No, we are diverse, my dear. And so why we are afraid to be a different color, different tradition, different culture? It's an enlightenment, it's a richness. And what COVID showed, that there are the powerful one who decide that what is good, what is bad, and the rest, you are abandoned. You are put aside. And then, of course, there is this animosity. And so that is the reason we have to work together. So that was about COVID. But we didn't learn the lesson of COVID, and now we are, my concern, we are not going to see and how to learn the lesson of Ukraine. So
you have a lot of work ahead of you, Mr. Moratinos.
We have, no, but it's not myself. We are one humanity. We have the chance today that all what happened in Ukraine or happened in COVID mobilize all our youth from Shanghai to South Africa. And people were going to the street. People were saying no more war, more health, more fight against climate change. And I say more to save the humanity together. So it's a collective responsibility. Of course, the governments and the politicians, we have our responsibility. But today work, you have the capacity to really demonstrate, engage yourself, and working in order that we create a better future.
And that leads me to my next question. You have a very young audience here. What hope do you give them as they see, you know, a world that didn't really unite in a global pandemic? We're seeing the catastrophe that is Ukraine right now in the heart of Europe, just very near here in the Black Sea. What hope do you give them? And just to quote the Foreign Minister, Mevlut Cavusoglu, who said, the alliance of civilizations could be the peace project of the future of the 21st century. How does that sit with the hope that you could give this audience today?
Well, I already said many occasions.
Because it doesn't look hopeful. Let's just be very clear. It doesn't look good right now.
Yes, I mean the youth is not the future, it's the present. It's no more the future, it's the present. Of course, they have to work closely with the decision maker, but they can shape the thinking, the engagement of all society in order to have for them not only hope, and you have to be optimistic. Don't be trapped with this gloomy message that you are receiving, not through Maria, but from media and other. The world is going to collapse, your generation will be worse, you are not having any chance. No. It's your time. I'm 70 years old, so my time is more or less over. But your time is the beginning. So how you are going to accept a world that is not going to really fulfill your aspiration? You have no sense. So what you have to do is to really fight, engage, commit for a better world. You are not going to create the ideal world, but as Albert Camus used to say, at least to avoid that the world is going to collapse, number one, climate change, number two, to have, the possibility to live together. And as talking about diversity, there is this new concept. Diversity is coming as a new concept. You have to embrace diversity. And, in diplomatic terms, there is always the time for new concept. Diversity was not even in a panel before. I think it's the first time we talk about diversity. They say, why? Because it's coming up. And Secretary General Antonio Guterres saying a very, very, very good sentence, say, well, the society that has no room for diversity, they have no room for humanity.
Absolutely.
So you have to really defend diversity. So we have already included the fight against biodiversity in our fight against climate change. Bio, that means the life of plants, animals, ocean. I propose to have a new concept, cultural diversity. We have to fight for this cultural diversity as a pillar of the new UN, because this diversity should be the element to really make us, Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu said, that the alliance could be a peaceful instrument for the 21st century, because at the end of the day, how we are going to put together the Chinese, the Africans, the indigenous in Latin America, the Western. Somebody have really to put them together to make them understand each other and to make a compromise on how we are going to set the new architecture, the new international governance, because we need this international governance in order to live together and peace and justice for the next centuries.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your wonderful experience with us. And if I may, we have just finished our session. It is 12 o'clock exactly. I want to see if there are any questions in the audience. We'll do 5 minutes of questions. This lady over there, could we get a microphone to this lady? If you could give your name and your position, please, and a very short question, please. It's coming to you, just behind you. And we'll just take 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much. I'm from Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. I'm a retired ambassador and then assistant of professor at Girne American University.
Welcome.
What I would like to ask actually, what you said about the Israel and Palestine, I agree completely.
Sorry?
What you said about Israel and Palestine, I agree completely. Both of them have the right to have their state. What do you think about Cyprus then? Because for maybe 50 years, we wanted the federation in Cyprus, but it didn't work out. And now we are saying that we want two states, a Turkish state and a Greek state in Cyprus. Do you think that we have that right also, as Palestinians have?
Yes, well, I'm not an expert in Cyprus issue. You know, I've been living there, and I prefer to reserve my opinion because I don't want to really go ahead about that. You know, because I'm a UN official, and UN official position is what the Secretary General has said about that.
Wonderful. Okay. Any other questions? This lady in the front.
My name is Ezgi Eleneçelik and I am from Istanbul Bilgi University.
Welcome.
I'm IR student. I'm bachelor student. Well, since you spoke about the failed diplomacy and in context of the Russian and Ukrainian war, I have a question about Georgia, because since in 2008 Russian forces invaded to Georgia, Gori, and occupied 20% of Georgia, Abkhazia and Ossetia. So I want your position, like I'm interested about your position about this one.
Georgia.
Yes.
I'm Turkish.
You are Turkish, yes,
Yeah.
I know. But you are asking about
About Georgian, like when the Russia invaded to Gori.
Ossetia and Abkhazia.
Yeah, in 2008.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I will, very shortly, I will tell you an anecdote. I was foreign minister of Spain, and you know Spain didn't recognize Kosovo because we considered that it was a unilateral declaration of independence, and the majority of the Europeans in the West recognized Kosovo. And I was in a lot of pressure. And then came the Georgia crisis. And then of course, Russia defend themselves, and then they occupy, Abkhazia and South Ossetia, they declare the independence of both. And now we met in a Council of Ministers of the European Union, and all my colleagues were very excited. They said we have to condemn Russia, we have to condemn, the violation of the principle of territorial integrity, and that, okay, so the whole 26 were saying no against Russia. I was the last to speak. And I told them, why you are so enthusiastic, so aggressive, to condemn Russia and to condemn the violation of territorial integrity? When I was trying to defend the Serbia position, you say no. There is no territorial integrity violation. And so Spain is coherent. We condemn Kosovo, we condemn South Ossetia and Abkhazia. Because in diplomacy, my dear friend, presidents are like boomerangs. You launch the boomerang, but the boomerang comes back to you. You recognize Kosovo badly, but then they come back with South Ossetia, Crimea, or Abkhazia. So whatever you have to do always in diplomacy is to stake to the international legality. And the principle of territorial integrity is till now one of the key elements of international legality. So that is the reason the people of the government of Turkey, the Europeans, the UN, have, expressed their condemn to what is going on in Ukraine, because the principle of territorial integrity has been violated. So when you are taking decision in international law, you have to be aware of the president. If you create a bad president, like a unilateral declaration of independence, then don't be surprised that in the near future others can do the same as you did. So you have to be coherent and you have to follow always the same line. If not, you create double standard or you don't follow the international legality.
Okay. We have time for just one more question here in the front, and then we will wrap up. If you can pass the mic. Yes. Your name and your affiliation, please.
Thank you. Kudret Özersay. I'm the former foreign minister of TRNC.
Welcome.
Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. We met before in New York with the Turkish Cypriot leader. Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. The Turkish Cypriot leader at that time, 12 years ago at New York, we met there.
Well.
I would like to ask your assessment about the current coercive diplomacy followed by the world in general. I mean the sanctions. Do you see the system of sanctions against Russia now as sustainable? Because it has some repercussions about the poor, because it makes poorer, as you know. I want to hear your assessment. Thank you.
Well, sanctions is an instrument of diplomacy, but should be not the only instrument of diplomacy. Sanctions have to be well defined, well identified, and well controlled. I mean, the success of sanction is South Africa. I think the only successful story recently in diplomacy where sanction fulfill its goal. In the rest of the situation, with my modest experience, sanctions have been able to change a little bit, but there will be another solution from my point of view. I think in certain moments you have to express, and sometimes is I will say, the lack of courage or imagination of diplomacy, as you don't know what to do, you go to sanction. Okay. But along sanction, in the case of today's situation in Ukraine, I think, of course, they can move Russia to, but do you think Russia is going to really, of course, they are going to suffer. We all are going to suffer. So we have to have a time limit with a specific time frame and have a mechanism to really leave them and abandon them as soon as possible, because at the end of the day, if the situation continues, what is going to be, who are going to be the loser? The same people, they are going to be the loser. So I think it's an instrument, so I'm in favor of putting sanctions, no problem, but you have to well define the type of sanction and then the repercussion of sanction, and to have at least other instruments in order to overcome the crisis. Only through sanction you don't solve the problem. And so sanction is part, and that let's start to work in the 21st century with the sense of complexity. People say, no, only to solve problems you have to have a political engagement. No. Or economic sanction. No. You have to have a whole package of things, put it all together in order to solve. Let's be prepared to address complexity. Today we are not in the 20th century, black and white, east and west. We have a much more sophisticated world with a much more different actors. So that's the reason we are in Antalya, this innovative diplomacy forum. We have seen how we can work. The cultural and religious aspect also influence the solution of problems. So we have to have all that together in order that we can really give a right answer to achieve a sustainable peace and understanding among people and nations.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our audience, and if you can join me in thanking our very special guest. Thank you for your questions as well. His Excellency Miguel Ángel Moratinos, High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. Thank you so much for joining us here today at the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. Thank you so much. And thank you all. I hope you enjoy the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. Good luck with your careers, and I hope to see future diplomats sitting here next to me in the future, very, very soon, I hope. Good luck. Bye-bye. Have a great day. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Podríamos haber continuado.